Okay, so I've just had a marathon movie night last night, and I watched Olympus Has Fallen followed by White House Down because I figured these two films compared. So they both came out this year, and they're both about a terrorist essentially taking over the White House. So there's been a lot of talk about which one's superior, and obviously they're very comparable films. So I'm going to just give this a breakdown and give you my verdict on this one. So I'm going to start with Olympus Has Fallen. So this is directed by Antoine Fuqua, who's a Brooklyn-based director, excellent director. He did Training Day, which is one of the the best films in the last decade, in my opinion. Very brutal, very kind of visceral action film, really very gritty, realistic film. And he's done a few other films. He's directed Shooter, I think, which is, in my opinion, is quite an underrated post-Born Identity style action film, which is very good, starring Mark Wahlberg. So this film, Olympus Has Fallen, stars Gerard Butler, and he plays a Secret Service agent, ex-Special Forces guy who basically made a mistake in the beginning of the story. It wasn't really a mistake, but it was basically a bad hand his character was forced to play, and he ended up being delegated slightly. But when the shit hits the fan, he's the only guy who can step up, and he kicks some ass. And it's really, really realistically done, very, very over the top and kind of crazy at times, but the action is really good, really intense, very well shot, and there's an AC-130 Spectre gunship in it. So for me, that was pretty incredible to see on screen. So let's move on to the next one, White House Down. So this came out this year as well, and this was the second one I watched. I watched Olympus Has Fallen first. So White House Down, this is starring Channing Tatum and Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx plays the president. This one has for some reason, and I'm just going to get straight to it now, for some reason this has had higher praise by mainstream critics. But in my opinion, this film is absolute garbage. White House Down. I almost stopped watching this halfway through because it was so utterly appalling. So this is directed by Roland Emmerich, who's a German director. He directed Independence Day back in the 90s, and a few others I can't really remember. But he's directed a load of action films, and he's a solid director. But in my opinion, he doesn't really have much of a craft, and it's very generic, mainstream kind of action. It doesn't really rock the boat. Very safe, and it really didn't work for me as a film. White House Down, I can't really even begin to go into it. Why? Because there's so many problems with the film. It's hammy. It just feels really fake and unrealistic. Channing Tatum's character doesn't really move very realistically. The fight scenes are just stupid. He just kind of rolls around, doesn't really do anything. This is the guy, how he looks in the film. He's meant to be ex-Marine. It doesn't really the film never really makes it clear what this guy's background is, but for some reason he can take on Delta Force operatives at ease, and there's no realism to it. The thing about Olympus Has Fallen is you felt that Gerard Butler's character was a match against the North Korean Special Forces paramilitary types who took over the White House, and he could take them on because he kind of had a superior level of training perhaps. But this guy, Channing Tatum, in the film White House Down, there's no reason why he's got the skill set. It's never really explained, and he's taking on ex-Delta operatives who should really be moving in a much more realistic fashion. They're kind of just running around the place like crazy people. There's no sense of strategy or tactics. It's just a really crap. It's kind of like a throwback 80s action film, but it's worse. It's worse than that. In fact, it's not even that. It's just garbage. There's this really fucking annoying 11-year-old girl in this film who's just a really annoying character. There's all these scenes where she's filming everything and uploading it to YouTube via some amazingly fast upload speed that I don't think even exists in this world, but you never know. And yeah, it's just absolutely terrible. So just don't go near White House Down. So look, this is where we stand. I think Olympus Has Fallen is by far the superior action film. It's not perfect, it's flawed, but if you just want a really easy throwaway popcorn style action film, definitely check out Olympus Has Fallen, because it delivers the goods. So my verdict is 100% out of these two. go for Olympus Has Fallen, because it's a much better action film. It's much more solid, it's much more believable. Even though it's over the top, it's somehow believable. The way that the authorities react to the attack on the White House is kind of really realistic. You get a sense of scale, you get a sense of it going up the echelons of command, and they're calling in different units, different teams. They're kind of bringing in all these forces to try and retake the White House. They're defending it realistically, etc. And it just feels much more believable. Whereas White House Down is just garbage. Like there's one M1A1 Abrams tank outside the main gate. It's just craziness. It's just very poor, very hammy, like I say, very B-movie-ish really. White House Down doesn't seem realistic at all. I don't know what the budgets were, but Olympus Has Fallen to me seems like it had a much bigger budget. But I bet if I look into it, I bet White House Down ended up having a bigger budget because of the cast. But the cast is great in Olympus Has Fallen as well. You've got not just Gerard Butler, but you've got Morgan Freeman in it playing a sort of vice president style guy. So look, if you're only going to watch one of these, watch Olympus Has Fallen, because White House Down is utterly shite.